Hi guys, we have a 2023 Skidoo Expedition Super Wide, and we have a bunch of accessories we need to install. We've got the heavy duty front belly pan, extra wide ski skins, cargo box, heavy duty rear bumper, front and rear hitches, and the wraparound front bumper. Thanks for stopping by. Continuing installing accessories on the 2023 Skidoo Expedition Super Wide, we have 3 kits that kind of have to get installed together. At the top left, we've got the adventure plate. Top middle, we've got the heavy duty front receiver hitch, and the rest of those pipes are all part of the wraparound front bumper. Since these parts all kind of bolt together, they've all got to be installed at one time. We've got the bodywork taken apart on the machine already, a bunch of components removed. That was done in the previous video where we installed the belly pan, and didn't make sense to put everything back together for that video, only to have to take it apart to shoot this one. Be sure to check that out if you're interested on how to put the full body skid plate on a Skidoo Expedition. Here we have the 3 instruction sets. These instructions are available from instructions.brp.com. You need to know the part number for the kit that you're installing. These instruction packages tend to cover a couple of different kits, so definitely you need to know the part number for the machine that you're using. The first step in the instructions tells us to remove the bodywork. Well, obviously we are accomplished. We have some fasteners and some mounting holes that we need to drill out here. I'll show you where we're going to start and how well this is going to turn out. A couple of rivets here that need to get drilled out, and over here we've got 2 marked holes, and likewise on the other side in the front aluminum casting that we need to drill those out to 1/4 inch so that we can bolt the supporting structure for the front bumper on so that it's nice and solidly mounted to the structure of the snow machine. The instructions say that we need to remove and discard some fasteners here, but obviously there are no fasteners installed. It is strictly just riv nuts that are sitting there. The adventure plate will bolt up onto that, and I wouldn't be surprised if something from the heavy duty bumper also attaches there. Let me get set up with some tools, drills, etc., and we'll start preparing all of those mounting points for installation. I don't know how well it's showing up. I'm kind of in shadow here, but we've got 2 marked bosses on either side that we need to drill out to 1/4 inch, and you got to be perpendicular to the frame. Kind of hard to see from this angle, but down under here is where those 2 holes came out. We've got our first piece that we're going to put on, which is one of the side supports. Let me get that snugged up and repeat for the other side. Here's a bracket, another one's on the other side, and notice that they're a little bit loose. I've snug them up quite a bit, but left probably about 1/8 of an inch of free play on the bolt. That'll be necessary when we go to do more assembly. We'll need just a little bit of kind of free play to get everything set up. That's one of the things it says in the instructions, is not to tighten anything up until you get most of the assembly all together. The next pieces we need to put on are the back end of the wraparound bumper, and they kind of go on something sort of like that. But before we can put those on, we have to drill out a couple of rivets here, because I believe they get replaced with bolts. Instructions say to pound the core out of the top rivet before you try drilling it out. Kind of like that. And this one might be a little more interesting because it's kind of tight. Okay, we get that out. This one I think we can drill from the top. We might have to get that one from the bottom. Or we've got this screw here. If we take it out, we might get this plastic back far enough that we can get down on the drill bit, or get the drill bit down on the rivet straight. Take a slightly larger punch, drive the stem of the rivet back through. Doesn't say to do this in the instructions, but I think that will give us enough to get down on that rivet. Okay, that gives us our holes to mount these rear pipes. We've got a top plate here that's got a couple of boot grips on it. Got some hardware, there's a washer, a couple of hex bolts, and flange nuts. Plate goes on. Of course, there's one plate left and one plate right. Goes down through. We bring our rear pipe up in place, line it up with the bolts. Start the Torx bolt in place, and we'll get these flange nuts on the bottom. Now I need to repeat on the other side. You guys don't need to watch that. For the next parts that we need to install are the rest of the wraparound bumper. It's going to go on kind of sort of something like this. We have a coupling tube that needs to go into the end of this pipe so that this pipe can slip onto it. And I will warn you, these come wrapped in plastic, and the plastic is packed down into the end of the pipe really nicely. And if you use your finger to fish that plastic out of there, where they've threaded these holes, there are some really nasty sharp burrs on the inside. Ask me how I know. There's 2 threaded holes. We slip it down into the tube, line it up, and we just loosely thread this big M6 bolt in here, and we repeat for the other side. Next we have our piece that comes up off of the aluminum casting. It needs an M6 threaded into it, and now we have the mount at the front that we need to put a couple of M6 bolts into. However, this is where things get complicated, in that that's not the only thing that has to be bolted down in that location. Underneath of this heavy-duty bumper, we have the mounts for the adventure plate. We've kind of reached the point where we're putting multiple kits on all at once here. We've got the wraparound bumper partially installed. We've got our adventure plate, has to go on underneath the wraparound bumper, and at the same time we've got our hitch assembly that replaces the front bar of the wraparound bumper and also has these supplemental bars that come back and tie into this mounting point. So we kind of have to fit all of this together all at once. And the instructions are most definitely to keep everything kind of loose. Now we've got our front receiver hitch. I have to feed it in and drop it down in behind the original front bumper. Now we bring our extra tube in, and we'll have to back that bolt out, add the additional layer. We're getting ready to install the brace that goes down and ties into the suspension at the front for the trailer hitch, and we've hit a little bit of a confusing step in the manual. They mention using, and the parts are here, a flange nut and a M6 bolt to tie these two together. They talk about this portion being aluminum and this being steel, but obviously in this kit everything is steel and it's welded together. There's absolutely no need to have that extra bolt head in there, because essentially it will be forcing this tab away from the belly of the machine. It actually will cause an interference. I'm going to get this started into place. We use the M8 bolts. And again, we don't want to tighten anything up until we get this whole assembly kind of sort of laid out. I want to have a little bit of slack in everything. We've got 2 new bolts that go up through all of this assembly and into the belly of the machine. That's going to take a little bit of jiggling around, lining things up from underneath, because we are going through 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of stuff before we get into the riv nuts that are inside the machine. Getting all these layers of bolts sorted out at the bottom is a little bit tricky. It takes a little bit of monkeying around, shove a punch up in, kind of twist things around. That's to be expected with doing so many layers all at once. Now that we've got our front bumper assembly kind of sort of figured out, we get the other side of the wraparound in place and then the outer bar, and then I think we can start tightening stuff up. Let me get the hardware sorted out for this, and I'll bring you back when we're ready to stuff it in place. This is going to be a little tricky to get all of this to fit in together. That has to fit onto the front bumper. And then we've got to convince this joint here to come together, and I don't think we're going to be able to do that without taking this back bar back off of the machine. But again, we left everything loose, so it's not difficult. And now we need to bolt into the original front bumper. And everything just needs a little bit of a shake, and it seems to go together fairly well. We don't want to tighten anything up too far just yet. We're still struggling getting all of these lock bolts in. The bolts that hold all the tubes together are fairly snug in their holes, which would be good once everything's assembled, but it makes getting that assembly just a little bit tricky. And as you can see here, we're having to wiggle stuff around to get the threads to start into the holes. I do believe that has everything started. Now we can start tightening stuff down. There we go, guys. It is all bolted down nice and tight. That is one mean looking front bumper. Now we need to get the bodywork put back together. As I said earlier in the video, we took this apart in the previous video when we were doing the full body skid plate. Now we need to get things put back together. Got the exhaust pulled out. We had to work on the belly underneath. This is going to be very tight to get in here. And one thing we want to be very careful of is that we don't damage this carbon seal that's on the exhaust. And I'm sure that there is some magic way that I have to hold my fingers just to get this to go in. You've got to get these grommets lined up underneath. Not break my phone when I'm using the flashlight. The front grommet is in place. This back one is so close. And we're going to make sure we don't damage the carpet seal. The bottom grommets are in place and pretty well ready to hook those springs up. We're going to do the top one first, because I think it will be easier. We got the top spring on. There's a bolt that goes down through there with a spring. See if we can get it started. And get that bottom spring in place. It promises to be a little bit of a challenge. We got the muffler in. That bottom spring is a little bit of a cantankerous thing to get at. We ended up attaching it to the muffler and pulling it through from the bottom there. Not something we could easily show on film. So we're ready to put the top of the hood back on. We've got tabs here, and down at the back, and here on both sides. We need to engage with the body of the snow machine, and that should get everything back in easily. And we have a couple of bolts here, and a couple other spots that we'll have to attach. it's got the hood clipped on. Now that we've got the hood kind of sort of where it needs to be, we need to make sure that we get our headlights clicked in. Now we put our glove box back in. Grabs. Got our dash. We got a couple screws on the dash that need to go in place. Screws that go up. We need to get the these top screws bolted in place. I'm going to snug everything else up. The instrument pod goes in from the back and slides forward, giving us 2 more torque screws to the gauge pod and the glove box back in place. We've got our belt cover needs to go back on. Now this is not too tricky, but you do need to make sure that it gets lined up properly. Another friend of ours that had a Gen 4 chassis snow machine didn't have his belt cover on quite straight and it ended up rubbing against the clutches and making a whole bunch of noise. Certainly got his attention. Now it seems like we're in good shape. Rubbing on anything. Now we need to put the windshield on. We've got the windshield assembly. There's a hole here we need to hook the front. Sides out. Front is hooked. Grommets at the midpoint here. Need to get seated. Along with grommets at the back. This side is all seated. And our mid grommet is seated as well. This is something you probably don't want to be doing when it's 30 below. These plexiglass windshields tend to be a little bit brittle in cold weather. We're 40 degrees, 10 degrees Celsius, give or take here in the building, and it's not too bad to work with. But definitely, if you're having to take your windshield off when it's 30 below, be it Fahrenheit or Celsius, it's still darn cold, and you want to be very careful that you don't end up breaking anything on the windshield. Now we've got our side panels that need to go on, and then we're back together. Side panels have 3 hooks. Need to catch here. Kind of creates a hinge. Make sure that it's down in place. And you close it. Catch the back. Catch the front. And looks like it's in good shape there. Go to the other side. Now we need to do a little test drive. Test run. Keys on. Switches up. Which does not appear to be revving on anything that it shouldn't be. That is a sharp looking snow machine. I think that's where we're going to end this video. We've made some good progress here today. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Greatly appreciated. Please remember to leave me a like, hit subscribe, maybe ring that bell icon, and comment down below. Let me know what you'd what else you'd like to see us do on this snow machine. And a reminder, if you're interested, that I have merch available. I'll leave a link to my merch store at Spreadshop down in the comments.